Let's talk about Whiplash, a movie that has been revered and talked about plenty over the last 10 years as one of the greatest works of art of the 2010s. A movie that introduced us to one of the most fascinating directors of our time, and a movie that gave us one of the most terrifying characters of all time that have no powers.
Were you rushing or were you dragging?
A small indie movie, crazily enough, but it's true. Modest budgets and modest box office numbers, but a movie that is loved by all. One of the main reasons this movie is so loved is this guy we just talked about, the character of Terrence Fletcher, played by the man himself, J.K. Simmons, who astonished us with one of the best performances of the decade out of nowhere.
Not quite my tempo. It's all good. No worries. Here we go.
His character is super interesting and people love to dive into it. And he's not even the main character. He's a supporting character in the movie, but he does shine bright still. And everybody likes to talk about him. I'm here to talk about someone else though. Someone that is overlooked, even underappreciated in my opinion, despite being the main lead. And that is the character of Andrew Neiman, played by the super rising star now, but who was basically a nobody back then, Miles Teller. I want to talk about his character, his performance, and why he's overlooked. Let's bring something new into the conversation. Begin. Now before I get into the real meat of this video, and talking about these absolutely stunning performances, which is why you should like this video, because you might forget later when it's all amazing. Thank you. I should give the rundown on the plot, for anyone who forgot. So Whiplash is the story of Andrew Neiman, a 19-year-old drummer who's in his first year at the most elite music school in the country. In the opening scene, he is discovered by a man named Terrence Fletcher, basically the most important professor in the school. Fletcher kind of recognizes Andrew's talents and calls him into his class. He's all nice and cute in the beginning. He asks him all about his family, his mom, his dad. He tries to get chummy. In the meantime, Andrew is getting to know a girl named Nicole, the awkward little idiot that he is. Anyway, they go into class. Turns out, Terrence Fletcher is an insane, sadistic psychopath who preys on everyone around him.
Why the fuck didn't you say so?
He starts to use the intimate, private things he learned about Andrew to manipulate and humiliate him. This causes Andrew to become somehow more obsessed with showing what he can do. And so he works, and he works. He drifts away from his dad. He breaks up with his girlfriend because he thinks he's not gonna have any time for her. And he practices his drumming till his hands bleed like he's committed murder. Eventually, none of it matters because Fletcher humiliates Andrew again when they're up for a competition. And Andrew gets into a car accident and has to literally run to the center while bleeding to catch up and be able to perform. Not an ounce of sympathy from Fletcher. Of course, he fumbles it and goes insane on Fletcher.
Fuck you, Fletcher! Fuck you!
He gets himself expelled, but also he gets Fletcher fired. Months pass, and he meets Fletcher again. They have one of the coolest, calmest scenes in the movie together talking about ambition and the greats. And Fletcher asks Andrew if he wants to come perform for his band at another competition. Andrew hesitates since he gave up drumming, but eventually he accepts and goes. But of course, it's a trap.
I know it was you.
Terrence Fletcher knew that it was Andrew who got him fired and he wanted revenge, so he decided to humiliate him one last time on the big stage by using music he didn't know. Ultimately, the movie ends with Andrew showing Fletcher the sheer fucking balls and drive he has in him. Whiplash is a pretty simple movie with a simple premise. One guy is trying to become the best at what he does, and facing him is a guy who's trying to find the best at what he does. It's not a movie that uses big set pieces or big visuals. It's just a fantastically directed, amazingly written small movie with some of the best performances you can ever witness. I want to talk about those performances. Terrence Fletcher is the guy everyone likes to talk about, and rightly so. He is the star of this show with the incredible performance by J.K. Simmons of that sadistic, maniacal, obsessed with perfect and demanding the absolute best from everyone around him. Manipulation, anger, passion, these are all his traits, and they just elevate the character really well. A character that delivers some of the craziest insults in movies ever.
Well, stop being so polite. Get the fuck out of my sight before I demolish you.
A character that can somehow bring out the fear of God in people despite being an ordinary man. And because he's so great, I think the other character, Andrew Neiman, gets kinda overlooked. In spite of the fact that, in my opinion, he is just as interesting, with a performance that might not be on the level of J.K. Simmons, but still, Miles Teller deserves all the praise he can get for the fantastic performance he gave at such an early time in his career like this. I'm going to focus on three main parts of analyzing the character and his performance: loneliness, obsession, and ego. In part, this aspect of Andrew's character is the one that makes me admire his character the most, because of the sense of relating that you get from it. We all feel lonely from time to time, and as an introvert myself, yay, I think that allowed me to understand his character better. Cool and badass he might be, Terrence Fletcher isn't the most realistic character in the world, you know. He's not an average Joe. And despite his obsessiveness and insane ambition that make him stand out a little bit, Andrew still feels like a real human that you can meet outside. Andrew is a guy who doesn't have a lot of people in his life. He doesn't have any friends. He's a bit close to his dad, but the one activity we see them do together is go to the movies. A place where you can have the least amount of interaction when you can just sit silently and stare at a screen together. He's depicted as a shy and reserved little idiot who doesn't talk much. He struggles to connect with others, and that is shown in the meeting of his girlfriend Nicole. A girl that he only managed to find the courage to talk to because of a little praise he got from Fletcher, where they have that super awkward first date, struggling to find common ground. Andrew is a drummer. Music is his life, and that's all he ever wants to talk or think about. He's also an only child, raised with no mother because she walked out on him, so that don't really help none. His lack of confidence on the outside is what also kind of allows Terrence Fletcher to easily manipulate him, especially in that first segment where he learns more about Andrew's childhood, and Andrew just happily gives the information away because he feels like someone finally cares. It's by far the saddest part of his character. And Miles Teller, forget about Top Gun and his muscles and party face. This is where he shines, playing an awkward little twerp like this who has anger issues. He has this cold stare in him that just makes it work so well. This is where the meat is. Obviously, Andrew doesn't work as a character if he didn't have this. The whole premise of the movie is reliant on his sheer determination and ambition to be the very, very best. He has a burning desire to be the best drummer in the world, and is willing to make any sacrifices and endure any hardship to achieve his goals. He wouldn't have lasted nearly as long as he did with Fletcher without it. On multiple occasions in the movie, we are shown Andrew exhausting his whole physical toll on his drumming, practicing for hours and hours and hours on end, dripping sweat and fully bleeding. You get the super cool ass shot of him dunking his bleeding hand in ice cold water. This obsessiveness here, in contrast with Terrence Fletcher's incredibly high standards and demand for excellence, is what gives the audience the main question this movie asks. How hard should you try to push someone, and when should you say enough is enough? Or should you ever? Well, if Andrew and Fletcher have one thing in common, is their answer to that question, which is no. Despite the fact that Andrew asked the question himself to Fletcher, and it seemed like he meant to say something else, we all know that Andrew wants to be the best of the best, and he doesn't think you should ever stop pushing someone to do that. His obsession is what leads to the amazing finale that just makes you stand up and want to jump around over all that drumming. Combine that with the fact that Miles Teller himself was a drummer, so he knows his stuff, but also we come back to that cold face. Miles Teller gives Andrew this silent determination, where it feels like nothing around him will ever faze him. The way we can get a fully believable fuck you to Fletcher and beat up a Fletcher from Andrew in the same movie that we get him crying of fear because of the guy is just brilliant. This one is pretty simple and straightforward. Andrew's ego in the movie is kind of a detached part that comes with his introversion. Andrew is a guy who is obsessed with greatness, right? Well, that also kind of makes him think of himself as above people who just want to live life simply. You got a scene where, in spite of the fact they don't understand it, Andrew's family praises him for his achievements as a musician, but where he still mocks and tries to belittle his cousins for what they do. Never mind that. This guy broke up with his girlfriend because he wanted to be the best at what he does, and he basically didn't think she could keep up with him. He kind of tried to disguise it as that their relationship would naturally deteriorate, and maybe that's in part true, but let's be real. He doesn't think she can keep up with him.
That's exactly my point.
What the fuck is wrong with you?
His ego is what drives his ambition too. Thinking of himself as higher and better than others helps make him stand out in Fletcher's eyes as the guy who will do absolutely anything. Now, to be fair, I don't think Miles Teller did his best at exploring this side of his performance. His ego is mainly driven by his ambition in the way Miles Teller portrays the character. And the cold, silent little twerp didn't work so well in that regard. But when it came out in anger, it was brutal and beautiful. The scene where he walks onto the set and talks to Fletcher like he's his bitch, saying this is my part and all that. It was pure chaos, and I love it. I really just can't believe people don't talk about him much. Well, that's not true. Yes, I can. I said the reason in the beginning of the video. This dude. Man, Miles Teller must resent J.K. Simmons. If it was Andrew Neiman, he would have probably. But god damn it. Anyway, I love this performance. To me, he had a much more realistic portrayal that led to some of the film's best moments, like the not quite my tempo scene.
Not quite my tempo.
Or the it's my part scene.
That's my part. I'll be on your stage.
Or when he fully attacks the bald bastard.
Fuck you, Fletcher! Fuck you!
Of course, the finale where he just brutally outwits Fletcher,
Andrew, what are you doing, man? I'll cue you.
even though they work together in the end and they're good. But initially it was really cool. Whiplash is an amazing movie that raises very interesting questions about the price of success and what it really should be. It doesn't provide easy answers, as it shouldn't. It treats the audience with respect and maturity, and it just has super awesome characters that you just want to eat up. And I'm sorry to say that they have never been replicated by Damien Chazelle's following work, despite how much I enjoy it. That's it, really. That's all I wanted to talk about. Tell me in the comments below if you enjoyed this and if I should do more character analysis like this. I enjoy looking at the nitty-gritty of character a lot. Subscribe if you haven't. And watch this video I made about the Peaky fucking Blinders next. See ya.